I can't control God.
It's a risk you take, you know?
I can't control the wind or God. So then
5 seconds before.
then I will call out the tour director. But I'm just saying that if the wind blows, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't control God. Talk to him.
Hello everybody, welcome back to The Body Serve. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm James.
We are back in Toronto. Went to a few different countries. We saw tennis in Berlin. It was our first ever grass court tennis experience. And how was that for you?
Well, first of all, the Bet1 Open. Well, fuck my drag. Bet1 is a mattress company. It's not a betting company. It's not a betting company.
Well, you said it on a previous episode.
I don't know if I ever said it, but I definitely
and you
thought
did.
it.
You're like, fuck that. But I didn't correct you either. I just sat there in stupidity as well. So I'm maybe 20% less culpable than you are.
Right. The Berlin grass court tournament is on an absolutely beautiful site. It's a very small tournament. There are only a few courts. The show court is called Steffi Graf Stadium. It's a quick walk from the Grunewald S-Bahn station. The transit, like getting to the tournament, was a dream. It really was.
As you said, a small site surrounded by, as one might imagine, a lot of wealth.
Yes.
The houses in that neighborhood.
Very wealthy neighborhood.
Like you're walking through from the subway station, you're walking through an incredibly wealthy neighborhood, and then there's a tournament.
Yeah, just down this little residential street. It looks like, it's very wooded, it's very green, and it's close to the Grunewald Forest, which is this massive preserve within the city limits of Berlin.
Things we liked about the site and the tournament. Something I'd never seen before at a tennis tournament. You walk around the grounds and then you see something that says, chill out section. Or cool out area.
What, you called it the cool out area, like a Jamaican.
What is it? Chill out? What did they call it?
Yeah, I think they called it like the chill out zone.
And so you go walk down these steps by the forested area, and then you look, there's a little river.
A little meadow.
A little lake.
And a lake. It very much looked like a fairy tale scene.
There's a mini kind of hill where they had chairs set out for people to sit down. You could just go and, after you watch Donna Vekic take out Jelena Rybakina, 2 minutes later, you could be just sitting in tranquil serenity, watching the water ripple with nobody around you.
That was amazing. At almost all tennis tournaments outside the majors, the access and the proximity of players is quite shocking. Right? Players walk through crowds all the time. There is an area where you can sit at the Berlin tournament where you're really right outside the players' area. And when you're down that hill, you're sort of sharing space. There's this sort of assumed invisible line that you shouldn't cross, but none of it is like roped off or anything. The players are also welcome to come down there and chill.
Spoiler, if you didn't know already, Petra Kvitova won that tournament. And if you see her with her trophy afterwards, some of the pictures were of her on that grassy knoll area.
Yes.
What are some of the other things that you liked?
I liked the drinks. Love that. There was a bar near the player area where they had some nice mixed drinks. The pulled pork sandwich was quite nice.
Mm-hmm. So the currywurst was not one of the highlights for you?
Coming from upstate New York, I'm not going to criticize like other people's street food or whatever, but currywurst, it was not for me.
Listen, you say that Chili's is the greatest restaurant in America. So like your
the
taste...
best chain restaurant.
Well, I don't know if you'd make that caveat on most days of the week.
We were very unprepared. I cannot believe we did this. Like, the forecast in the city of Berlin said no rain. I didn't think to look at the location we were going, which is still in the city, but it's like southwest of where we were. and it rained for 2.5 hours right when we got there. Like, why were we so unprepared? We did not even bring our umbrellas.
We traveled to Europe with umbrellas.
New umbrellas.
We bought umbrellas, too many umbrellas for this trip.
So how mad can we even be? Because it was so stupid on our part.
We literally walk up to the entrance and it starts raining. And then we're just standing around for 2.5 hours waiting for play to start back.
But what you can be annoyed about is that every tennis tournament I've ever been to, when it rains, it's like they could have never anticipated this outcome. It's like it has never rained at a tournament before. There's never enough seats. There are very few like shaded areas. Why are they always so unprepared? You literally pulled a chair into the, what was it, the Adidas tent?
No, not Adidas, Fila.
The Fila tent got nasty looks. Like, listen, everybody's huddled in here because it's raining.
I'm sorry you're
mad that I
trying to
brought a
sell
chair in?
apparel. You have a captive audience here. Maybe try and do some sales work.
I didn't even, we put the chair in front of Riley Opelka's face. Not in front of any of the merchandise. Nobody's here for Riley Opelka, okay?
Right, but it's raining. This happens at pretty much every tennis tournament. Where are the people supposed to go?
Exactly.
Watching grass for the first time kind of changed my impression.
Okay.
Well, it softened me again toward the surface. Because I think I've been pretty harsh on previous episodes in anticipation of this grass season, saying it's archaic. And yes, it's terrible for the environment and all these things. It's associated with the stodginess of Wimbledon and the All England Club. And it is probably the pinnacle of aloofness and eliteness in tennis. That kind of inaccessibility that makes tennis not affordable or accessible to the masses. Like, grass court tennis is the epitome of that.
Okay.
And you don't need to look further than even some of the country club players from North America have never played grass court tennis until they go to England. Because they just don't have access to that. Even them don't have access to that in North America or whatever. I'm just becoming more and more put off by how niche within the niche grass court tennis is.
Wait, but seeing it change,
It didn't change that. It just made me like kind of ooh and ah a little bit.
I can't lie. Like, we've talked so many times about how Wimbledon is problematic, but I love grass court tennis. I love watching it.
You don't really get a full picture of how the ball bounces low and how the ball reacts on the surface until you see it live.
Yeah, definitely. Yelena Rybakina, even not at her best, she's the player that I most wanted to see in person this year, and we got to see her that first day once the rain stopped, playing Polina Kurdamatova, who is Veronica's younger sister. The girl has game. She really she has a big game for grass. But Rybakina, even not at her best, was able to kind of boss with her serve. The serve is the truth. Like, there's no way around that. And even though she seemed like a little bit lethargic, loved watching the movement. It's not like you see her scurrying. It's not even like you see all this speed. It's just that she's put herself in the right positions for pretty much every shot.
I'll tell you the things that I didn't like about this tournament.
Okay.
I was so disappointed that given that there are only 3 show courts, one of them was pretty much completely inaccessible to the fans.
Yeah.
And made exclusively available to the VIPs.
So courts 1 and 2 are next to each other, and there is like a stadium seating for half of court 1. Does that make sense? So if you sit like higher up in the seating, you can see court 2, but there are 2 matches going on at the same time, so you can't like clap during points for the wrong match, you know? So you're sort of looking past court 1 if you want to see the other court. There's a small VIP area like on the other side of court 2, but I really wanted to see Dasha, and you couldn't see much of her.
I mean, why are we still doing this when tennis is already so elitist? to make it also elitist within the event itself.
Yeah. I mean, that first day, what were there, like 1,000 people on the grounds? You really have to have a VIP?
On. You go to a tennis tournament and you want to see your favorite player and you pay a ticket and you literally can't? Like you have to go up into a high seat on an adjacent court to be able to look over court 1 to then view court 2 beyond it to catch a glimpse beyond the umpire chair obstructing you because Hans and Steffi are VIP members at this golf club.
Who are they? It's a tennis club.
Like,
by the way, you said golf.
Oh, golf club. 6 of one, half a dozen of the
right.
other. Like,
I mean, no, but people just love feeling elite. You know, like any chance to have a higher status, like on a plane or at a sporting event, they will take it.
The other thing I didn't like, and I was completely just, I could not believe it, but yet I could. We were sitting in those same stands by court 1, and any Tom, Dick, or Harry could have just walked over and, trigger warning, I'm sorry to say this, but it's relevant for this podcast and this sport, stabbed one of the players.
Oh, yeah.
Because this happened in Germany.
I don't even remember if my ticket was checked. There was zero security.
It was scanned.
I had a bag.
To get into the site, it was scanned from your phone, and that was it. You could bring anything into the event.
I had a bag. Nobody even looked once at it. No, you could really bring anything you wanted.
And there was no real security courtside. I could not believe it. And then initially I was like, well, maybe things are different here. And then it was like, no, this is where it happened. Not Berlin, but Germany. Anyway, I just can't believe that in 2023, the things that we allow ourselves to be subjected to in the name of security worldwide in so many different fields and avenues and instances, that we just turned a blind eye to this kind of stuff still.
Where they could actually be useful.
Exactly.
Hey, but you don't have to take your shoes off at the airport anymore.
That is, I
really
appreciate that.
I mean, overall, it was a really great experience, and we were. I don't want to sound complaining. Like, we're so privileged to go. Like, it was such a treat to go, and I understand how lucky we are to be able to see live tennis, especially in another country.
Okay, but our perspective now is a little bit colored by us traveling with you as a semi-disabled person. Let's be real.
Yeah, and that's not even being funny.
But also we're older now.
We are.
And so traveling now, it just becomes so clear how everything is so uncomfortable.
The seats in Steffi Graf Stadium may be the worst seats I've ever sat in at any sporting event. Like, no joke, I'd rather sit on a bleacher. It was a perfect L, like a perpendicular, like a perfect right angle. I could not sit in the stadium. We sat there for one match, and I could no longer sit there physically. I have something similar to what Annette Kontaveit is retiring from tennis for, like disc degeneration. I feel like it sounds worse than it is, really. But yeah, I didn't realize the seats were so terrible. I may have spent more on like lower seats because they had these like beautiful chairs in the mezzanine section.
Naturally.
Right.
No, but just in general, travel in general, airplanes.
Yeah, it's really difficult for people who have disabilities.
So let's talk about the results on grass that have happened since we last recorded. Our last actual tennis episode was our French Open recap. And then we had a mailbag episode that we released while we're on the road. And in that time, a whole bunch of grass court stuff has happened. Of course, in Berlin, Petra Kvitova, back-to-back years now where she goes into Wimbledon with a title on grass.
She won her 6th career grass title. That's a lot, considering how many other people have and how few tournaments are played on grass. She beat Donna Vekic in the final. Vekic took out Wimbledon champion Rybakina. Vekic had a really wonderful week here.
Vekic is accomplished on grass. She's had good results on grass before. And this was... I watched that whole match. It was so impressive to watch Vekic do that. From she stepped out on court, she had this air about her that I'm just ready for whatever happens today. The very first game that she's serving, she stops a couple times to fix her hair because her hair, it was really bothering her at that point. After she wins a crucial point in the second set, I want to believe, she finally breaks Rybakina, and then she's going to serve. One of the dude bros in the crowd says something to her, and she starts laughing, and she says something back to him. Like, hello, like this is a very important part of the match. And she's able to just, break the fourth wall, the third wall?
Yeah, the fourth wall. It's like she kind of unlocked something mentally that week.
No, I'm just saying that she had a calmness about her, clearly, that day. And the game to match it. She did not allow Rybakina to push her back from the baseline at all, which is not easy to do in that match.
No.
In that
Rybakina
matchup,
hit,
I should say.
she hit 15 aces in that match. We also got to see Ons Jabeur on grass. She played Yulia Niemeyer, lost. We know that Niemeyer can play on grass. She made the Wimbledon quarterfinal last year, but damn, like those were some powerful ground strokes, and they just fly right off the grass.
She seemed a little bit out of sorts in that first set against Ons, and then something happened.
Yeah.
And when it clicked, she was just redlining from the baseline, would not miss. It was a completely different person.
It was one-way traffic, pretty much.
She seems to be coached by Andrea Petkovic right now, because Penko was in her box for that match, and then I saw her the next day sitting alongside Petkovic on court 1 in the stands watching somebody play.
Yeah, Petko was just like everywhere. It's such a small grounds that you see her many times throughout the day.
I also saw her hit down a guy.
Oh yes, knock somebody on their ass by accident, right?
By accident. This guy was sitting on the outside of court 1 and court 2 where you enter those grandstands, and she walked by, and he must not have been watching, and she must not have been watching, and he ends up being just knocked down to the ground.
Yeah,
I was like, okay,
damn.
And she showed the requisite.
Right, she apologized.
And,
there's no drama here.
I'm not here saying that Petkovic is a monster. I just want to say one more thing about my Berlin experience. Watching Rybakina in particular, during that Vekic-Rybakina match, there were these dude bros in those fancier seats that you were talking about. And they were, getting up and dancing in between points, da-da-da-da-da, being borderline obnoxious.
Okay.
Like they'd be calling out a lot in between points. But it was clear that they were there for Jelena. And at one point they just started calling her baby.
Oh, what?
Like, let's go, baby.
Oh my god.
And I'm just like, what on earth gives you the right to do that?
No.
It was so gross.
There's something about her, the way she looks and her demeanor that attracts a lot of like weird ass admirers. A lot of like older men as well.
Well, these were younger.
Yeah.
Younger than me, at least.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of women are listening now and be like, oh wow, these two naive fucks. Like, this is what women have to deal with.
Oh, I'm sure.
Every day of the week.
But like online, Jelena attracts like the same kind of weird comments that someone like Chris Evert does. But it's like sort of infantilizing, like this perfect baby, you know? We saw Jelena walk by us, and at first I didn't recognize her. I had never seen her in person. She just looked so small, like tall.
She was very tall, but slight.
Yes, really different than I expected. Okay, elsewhere in this short grass season, we had Alexandrova defending her title in Rosmalen, or Sertogenbosch, beating Kudermetova in the final. The Brit Katie Boulter, one of the many Katies. I don't know any of the Katies.
You just call all the Brits Katies now.
Yeah, Katie Boulter beat Katie Burridge in the final of
I
Nottingham.
think you said Katie Dart earlier today.
I was kidding. Ostapenko, who has been a semifinalist at Wimbledon, is killer on grass, is playing singles and doubles everywhere.
She's on one right now.
Yes, she beat Babs in the final of Birmingham.
You know who she also beat? Venus Williams. Miss Venus Williams made her return to grass. Her first match was in Sertogenbosch, where she lost in 3 sets to Celine Naif. Venus won the first set, lost the second set in a tiebreak, losing 6-2 in the third. And then she shows up in Birmingham. In her first match, beats Camilla Giorgi 7-6 in the third set. 8-6 in that tiebreaker. She then goes on to play Jelena Ostapenko, loses the first set, is down a break in the second. I believe she was even down 5-3 in that second set, and comes back to win it 7-5, goes up a break in the third set, before Ostapenko comes back to win it 6-3.
So we were in Berlin when Venus was playing Camila. I just wish Venus could have come to Berlin instead.
Right?
What a treat it would have been to see her. But, man, Georgie deserved that loss so bad. Nasty.
Yes.
Venus tumbled, fell in the first set, I think, and Georgie was screaming because she had just won the point. Like, dude, shut up. What are you doing? Like, there's somebody on the ground.
No.
Like, just nasty
There
behavior.
isn't just somebody on the ground. There is the fucking Venus Williams on the ground at 43 years old.
Yeah, which may have contributed to the reason she was screaming.
I would like the Italian prosecutors to open up another case against the Georgie syndicate.
Yeah. Do we know she's still the holder of that Canadian Open title?
She
I
is.
mean, after the vaccine fraud? We've proved nothing, right?
No, and she denied it, and I guess that's that.
That's that. In tennis, if you say, oops, that's that. There are a few current doping cases where the defense was essentially oops, and they got a much lesser sentence. Anyway.
The other Rosmalen result on the men's side, Griekspoor beat Jordan Thompson.
Yeah, Thompson won the Surbiton Challenger last year, I believe. Has made a few grass finals recently in the past few years. This is actually two Dutch players won the Dutch tournament consecutively. Last year was Van Rijthoven, and this year Griekspoor.
I was about to say, Alexandrova is not Dutch.
In Stuttgart, Francis Tiafoe now has a title on all of the three big surfaces.
What are the smaller surfaces?
Well, there used to be carpet, right? Does indoor count as a surface? No, that's
still a hard court.
Sure, but
Indoor hard. Okay.
They used to say there were more than three surfaces.
Okay. Maybe I'm being nitpicky here. He also cracked the top 10 with that win.
Yes, for the first time. Bublik wins in Halle. Bublik, a Russian speaker on Twitter, translated one of his infamous rants. I can't corroborate this because I do not speak Russian, but it was going around on Twitter. Just insanely vile, disgusting things that came out of that man's mouth.
Homophobic shit.
Homophobic, I mean, crass, nasty, like sexual stuff.
And, I'm sure there are folks who will be like, well, I'm sure he didn't mean it. Then why is it coming out of his mouth?
Why did he say
like, he's
it?
a grown man. A grown man.
It's like the same people who said when Justin Thomas called the golf ball the F word, he did not mean that the golf ball was a homosexual.
Well, obviously, it's a golf ball.
Right. So therefore, it's not offensive. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that.
But the point is, it seems that every time one of these men goes on some unholy tirade that reveals bits of their character that are unsavory, they then follow with a big result.
Yeah. They usually have success. Carlos Alcaraz wins Queens. He also joins the club of now having a title on the three surfaces.
Carlos winning that tournament and Iga making the semi-final before she dipped in Bad Homburg. These two top-ranked players, two young players, threatening to dominate both tours, generationally speaking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They both have this deficit on grass. And we saw from both of them, Carlos to a greater degree, figure out the surface a bit this past week. And I think that's a common theme for so many players. We see a lot of times during this time of year that some lesser known Brits have quarterfinal, semi-final runs, and you're like, why are we seeing so many Brit players have success? And it's because they grow up on this surface. Like when you are playing,
or they've had the opportunities.
when you've had the opportunity and you've been playing on grass since you're 12, you know how the ball reacts to that surface. Whereas if you're Jessica Pegula per se, and you need to be maybe 8 years into your professional career before you can finally start to feel comfortable on the surface. So that's just something to consider that I don't think we necessarily gave enough credence to in previous years.
Sure. Yeah.
But my point in talking about these two is that, and I think it's indicative of their tennis acumen, that's different clearly from most players, that they're able to figure this out quicker than others.
Right. Carlos is 20. He's winning queens. He's a problem because he's a total tennis nerd. Like, he lives and breathes tennis. He was essentially teaching himself how to play on grass by watching people who are better than him. He said, like, he was watching tape, watching YouTube of really good grass court players. Chris Eubanks is into his first ATP final, will most likely crack the top 50 or possibly number 51, somewhere around there.
If he wins the tournament in the final against Manarino, he'll be inside the top 45.
Okay, all right. And then you will probably know the results by the time this episode comes out, but on the women's side, at Eastbourne, we've got Madison or Dasha. Madison beating Coco Gauff. Coco herself had a great win over Jessie Pegula, straight sets.
In the Bad Homburg final, it'll be either Bronzetti or Siniakova.
Yes, you alluded to Swiatek withdrawing, which is common in these tournaments the week before a major. She withdrew, I believe it was from her semifinal
Yes.
versus Bronzetti with like an illness. And then somebody photographed her today in Wimbledon Village eating at a restaurant outside. And then, of course, this set off people saying, oh my God, she's such a liar. She's not really sick. I really don't care. Like, tennis players make up lies all the time to pull out of a tournament. Everybody has done it. Maybe she was sick. I don't know. To me, it was hilarious that she decided to dine in the most conspicuous place, like you would be seen.
Right. But does she have to eat? Should she have gotten Uber Eats delivered? Like, I don't understand. Like, this is not a new phenomenon, right? I get that the optics may be bad, but when she withdrew, everybody knew what that was. Who are the people that actually thought that that was an injury? It sucks for the tournament, right? You've sold tickets, and now fans are only gonna get one match. So I get that, and that's a legitimate gripe. But the older I get, the more I fall on the side of A, protecting your peace and doing what's best for you. And also, these are working professionals. Like, tennis is a workplace, right? They're independent contractors, and they're doing what's best for them. I get that as well.
No, I mean, it's really not that serious to me. I thought it was funny.
Okay.
Can I laugh?
Sure.
Okay.
No, but you know people are going to be mad.
Oh,
People
yeah,
are already
yeah.
inclined to dislike Iga.
Right.
Yourself included. I'm going to keep this
That's
going. I'm going to
overstated.
keep this going on this podcast.
We watched Breakpoint on planes while we were away. The final 5 episodes of this season were released. I just took a bunch of notes in my notes app while we were on the plane watching.
So did I.
Which is where Stefanos's pseudo-apology should have remained. But I digress. We'll get there. I think we both agreed independently that this round of episodes was a huge improvement on the first one.
Except for episode 10.
Yeah, not perfect,
I
but
mean, let's be clear here. How interesting could you have made the ATP and WTA finals episode?
you can only say so many times that this is the tournament that everybody wants. No,
When it's not.
That's false.
There were a lot of false things stated
Yes.
in this series. Starting with, in the episode 6, right off the bat, Nick Kyrgios saying, I know I sell out stadiums and tournaments all over the world. Sir.
Oh, you don't play.
And even when you do, people are not buying tickets to watch Nick Kyrgios play tennis. You are maybe
Well, some people are.
maybe a nice byproduct for some people.
I think there's a semi-truth in there. I think that Nick does drive a lot of attention, and we've seen it. I don't think it's at the level that he thinks it is. Like, he talks like he's bigger than Djokovic and Rafa, when that's clearly not true. But he's not 100% wrong.
At Wimbledon, when Alizé Cornet beat Iga Swiatek, the voiceover says, Cornet takes out Iga Swiatek, the red-hot favorite.
No.
No, again, no. False.
I get it. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but no. Iga was never the favorite for Wimbledon.
Nick Kyrgios saying, you know what they say, Netflix, behind every man is a great woman.
And they still kept that in after everything happened earlier this year with the trial.
One of the best parts of the first few episodes of this second batch, the second big batch, was the relationship between Ajla Tomljanovic and her father.
Yes. I think a lot of people, myself included, were asking, like, why Ajla Tomljanovic? Like, why was she chosen? And I think the second half of this season, her story really, like, played out in an interesting way. Finally, a lot of that had to do with her. Maybe they were telling the story better, but it actually, like, paid off. We've said before, following the superstars might not be that interesting because they're not actually that interesting. With Ajla, I feel like there were so many shades that she showed us.
Right, and a lot of people thought, well, she's only there because she's dating Berrettini. And they get to show this hot, seriously hot couple
right.
play tennis. And that in and of itself is, I guess, interesting to tennis. But by the second half, we're told right away that they've broken up.
And so Matteo's gone. He's not being featured at all.
No, but here's Ajla, and she has this wonderful storyline now because she's making her way through to the US Open to be Serena Williams' final opponent on a tennis court.
And not only that, I mean, she had reached the Wimbledon quarterfinals, so there was like a viable story there.
And then the interplay with her father. At one point she tells him, honestly, if I made a little bit more money, I'd fire you in an instant.
The context was that her dad didn't bother booking a hotel after the third round at the US Open, and they're all laughing, ha 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 ha. And when she realized he wasn't kidding, her face, I mean, just changed.
She's like, I'm not moving again. I'm not moving hotels, so you need to figure this out.
During the Wimbledon episode, there were two. I will say they even handled the Curio stuff better. Not that I really enjoyed it, but like the storytelling was quite a bit better. The Stefanos thing that kind of blew up. I didn't know it was going to blow up like that, but I am kind of glad it did. And I wrote down this quote while I was watching. He said about their match at Wimbledon, quote, I would describe it as an uneducated approach of playing tennis. But tennis is a gentleman's sport. It's all about respect. We're not playing basketball.
Well, that was after he'd already said, quote, he's brought that NBA basketball kind of attitude to tennis.
Yeah. And so I wrote, I don't know, feels kind of racist. Twitter seemed to agree that it felt kind of racist.
I wrote yikes in caps. Okay, so Nick himself has talked about bringing a more NBA approach to tennis.
Right.
So this is not Stefanos bringing this up out of nowhere. But of course, he has no tools to not trap himself in a vortex of racist discourse.
No, he's not equipped.
He's tethered to nothingness. I said this.
His use of the word uneducated was a big problem. And the thing is, like, we all saw the Wimbledon match between them. We talked about it on the show. Nick pushed his buttons so hard on purpose, and Stefanos let him. So this whole, like, gentleman sport thing, Steph allowed himself to let anger take over.
It was embarrassing.
He bashed the ball into the stands. He started behaving like this person he claims is uneducated. So to me, like, part of that was shame about how he allowed himself to behave on court. And just say, like, yeah, this dude, he acts really bad, but he got in my head and he mentally broke me. He picked me apart.
And Nick himself said, quote, everything I did out there worked, referencing all of his antics. It was by design. And when people say, oh, when you're playing Nick Kyrgios, it's not just the tennis, it's everything else that he brings with it. It's not external stuff exclusively. It's the stuff that Nick actively brings to the tennis, intentionally.
Oh, yeah.
To throw people off.
And I mean, I hate that shit. But if I'm Stefanos and I've allowed myself to behave in a similar way, you can't just turn around and say, oh, that guy is bringing basketball to tennis. And then some people on Twitter were like, what do you mean? Why do you associate the NBA with black people? Like, be serious. Over 70% of the NBA is black, and virtually all of the major stars of the NBA are black, except for, like, Doncic and Jokic.
Well, at least Netflix addressed the Kyrgios assault situation as well. They actually mentioned it on air in the second half.
Amazing.
They are just bastions of morality.
Yeah, I mean, it was still like a rehabilitation tour.
I would like to say that Felix Auger-Aliassime and Chrissy Everett are both cancelled.
What? Why?
Because they both counseled Ajla Tomljanovic ahead of that Serena Williams match at the US Open.
Yeah, don't like that. Goats need to stick together, okay? I knew that Ajla and Chrissy were close. I didn't know they were that close. Where Chrissy was like, she's like a daughter to me. And Felix and Ajla are very close. We knew that already. But like, this is Serena.
Honestly, cancel Billie Jean King as well. Because if I hear that pressure is a privilege thing one more time, and then I realize that it's written on the actual facade of the player's entrance as they walk onto Arthur Ashe, when they showed that, I was like, oh. Honestly though, Ajla she's a star. And I will forever stand until she does something cancelable. Because she handled that whole Serena thing, and we said it when it happened, from top to bottom, start to finish, with aplomb. And with a poise and a humility and a self-deprecation and a humor that was just really good to see and to watch on this Netflix series.
Yeah. Still feel bad for Annette Kontaveit, what she went through and, wasn't able to do it against Serena, left her press conference in tears. I cannot imagine that type of pressure on a player. Before the match, Ajla's dad was like, 30,000 people. Hey guys, we're fucked. And she did it. I think despite the improvements, one of the things they're not doing very well is filming the tennis. To me, first of all, the way that they display the scores is confusing if you're used to the regular way of tennis. And I don't think they're doing a really good job of like capturing how important momentum is in tennis matches. They're just chopping them up too much. In that Ajla match, like, would it have been nice to show Serena saving one of the 5 match points?
Right.
They skipped to, oh, Ajla's not a good closer, but look, she just did it. It's like, that wasn't the story of that match at all.
But you could also say she's not a good closer, but she also lost 4 match points and still did it.
Right.
While also being able to show the tenacity of Serena Williams that defined her entire playing career and made her who she is.
Like, you could have said Ajla didn't allow herself to be demoralized after failing to convert, a few match points or something. What other documentaries have done better is weave the actual gameplay into the storytelling better.
Sharapova's commentary is one of the best parts of this thing for me.
Is it?
It is.
Is it, though?
She doesn't add much. But when she does, the way it's delivered, I really enjoy it.
Okay.
But maybe she has an acting future in her.
I do not really. I never got it, as you know.
Oh, my God.
I think once they got to the US Open, Netflix realized, oh, shit, maybe we should actually follow the best players. And so we got some stuff about Iga. Not a lot.
And we started getting a couple things about Carlos.
Right.
As we went to the US Open. And at that tournament is where we get Patrick saying about Frances Tiafoe, quote, "Frances, better than anyone, represents the American dream."
Okay, thank
you,
Patrick.
Now, what does that mean, Patrick from France?
I mean, Frances has a great story.
It does.
That should be told.
But why it gotta be American dream?
Why? Well, why does it have to be Patrick? Like, why is he telling it?
Because the American dream in 2023 looks like what exactly?
Well, following today's Supreme Court rulings, it doesn't. It looks like shit.
Oh, it was just an inane regurgitation, devoid of intellect. And I think it also is emblematic of this constant need in tennis to describe everything at the highest tilt. That you can't just describe something, you have to be superlative about it. This has to be the best that ever did. Oh my God, this mundane run-of-the-mill 5-hour, 5-set match was the greatest tennis I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Notably, provably false, given the last 20 years. Like, come on. But everything, in order to make it seem important, you have to make it seem like the most extreme version of something. Francis, of course, you remember, made it to the semifinals of that tournament, and along the way he had to beat Rafa Nadal. And he gives a quote that I really enjoyed. and this is even me as a Rafa fan, right? He says, nothing but love and respect for him. We got a date and he has to come see me. So let's do it.
He also said he's on some other shit, man.
About Carlos Alcaraz.
Oh, I forgot to write down who it was about.
It was about Carlos.
One of my highlights was watching Francis's mom back in the tunnel, looking at all the NBA players and saying, thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for coming. Like, just the sweetest.
And then here we go. It wouldn't be a Breakpoint episode with Taylor Fritz being on some bullshit, right? Talking about how, woe is me. I'm so sick of everyone trying to discredit the win. Rafa at Indian Wells. And so when he beat him again at the World Tour Finals, Rafa, his worst surface, Rafa who's still injured, Rafa who is a shadow of who he was, blitzing everybody to start the year. Now it's vindication. Now I finally can revel in this moment without you haters trying to take the moment away from me. Girl, sit down.
That final episode was very boring. I'm so sorry.
It was horrendous.
And on a long plane ride, I was willing to watch very boring things.
Right, so we're moving on now to
tennis governance.
Depressing news? I guess
we have to do the draws at some point. But...
Yeah, Tony TJC had asked us in the mailbag episode about what the LIV golf merger thing could mean for tennis, right? Something like that. And I guess naively, I said, well, it would need somebody like Djokovic to break away and steal all the momentum from the ATP and, you know, nefariously try and do this on his own, right? Lo and behold, the ATP and WTA are just willing to play ball.
Yes. It's actually going to be an institutional thing. I think that the LIV PGA experience has served as a tool to help other leagues learn what not to do. Let's start at the beginning. Gaudenzi was recently reappointed as ATP chairman, and he this week confirmed that the ATP is in talks with Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund for, quote, formal partnerships relating to events, infrastructure, and technology investment. This includes the likelihood that the Next Gen Finals will move to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia this year. That's expected to be announced soon. Gaudenzi said clearly that he wants to avoid a situation like LIV, that we're kind of learning from their mistakes, and he insists that investors must, quote, stick to respecting the history of the sport and the product. Of course, we'll see. That sounds a little naive to me, but tennis, it looks like, is trying to get ahead of the possible temptation for a breakaway tour by just going straight to the source and saying, hey, do you have money for us?
And then we get Billie Jean King out here now saying that she's on board with these talks. And we get this article by, where is it? In the New York Times by Matt Futterman. Billie Jean King and the WTA are framing this as, well, we need to have dialogue with people. And this is the way to change the lives of women in Saudi Arabia, by playing ball. And it just all felt a bit...
coordinated?
Yes, but also just very archaic.
Yeah, it felt very like international relations.
Like, these are politics of like 1989, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't feel of the day.
Right. Initially, I was surprised, and then I got to thinking, and it actually felt pretty on brand for Billie Jean. Like, she's all about engagement and about this like eternal optimism that things can be better if we just talk it out, if we relate to one another. I mean, she did the same thing with John Wooden in Sports Illustrated, I think, in the 70s. She did a lot of talking. Like, Billie Jean is really, really good at talking, right? She's charismatic. She's persuasive. And so I think there's this like old school liberal in her that feels like, I think we can make genuine progress. I'm not as optimistic.
Because this is an actual sports washing mission.
Right. And this is happening in a lot of sports. I guess if you believe that Saudi Arabia is trying to modernize and become a more liberal society, then like, go for it.
Meanwhile, you have Nick Kyrgios out here blasting on Twitter saying that, yes, sign me up. The players are finally going to get paid what they're worth.
Okay, if you play, he was just out here talking about who he should coach. Does he still play?
If you play and win matches as well. because he hasn't done a lot of winning in his career. So,
Wow.
the WTA also announced a new calendar and a commitment for equal prize money, and this happened shortly after the initial news that the ATP was looking into doing business with the Saudis.
Yes. My first reaction was, well, you're not going to get equal prize money if the ATP inks a deal with the Public Investment Fund and you don't. Now you're left in the dust yet again. Nay. Steve Simon also said the WTA is seriously evaluating partnerships with Saudi Arabia. Potentially holding events there would be a way to support progress for women, according to Steve. But he says there are still huge, complicated issues that they need to deal with. Part of this new calendar is that there will now be 10 1,000 level events. There are currently 9. And buckle up, 7 of them will be 2-week events. We already have, we have Rome, Beijing, Cincinnati, and Canada, all moving to 2 weeks. Indian Wells, Miami, and Madrid already there. Doha, Dubai, and one other 1,000 level tournament that has yet to be named will be 1-week events.
Of note here, if you recall, Doha and Dubai would alternate year to year as to which would be a 1,000 level event and which would be a 500 level event. With this new structure, they'd both be at the 1,000 level.
Right. They would also be increasing the number of 500 level events to 17, and then kind of changing the approach to the 250s to give them a stronger regional focus and kind of fostering younger players. So opening up more opportunities for people to play at the 1,000 level, and I guess leaving open opportunities at the 250 level for younger or lower ranked players.
And increasing restrictions on higher ranked players playing those 250s.
Yes. So this pathway to equal prize money, the goals are that at the joint 1000s and the joint 500s, they'll have equality by 2027. And at all other 1000 and 500s, it'll be equal in 2033.
And that's a long way off.
It is, but again, it's like, is this just like cash flow out to equalize prize money like in an artificial way? Like, is this based on revenue forecast, or is this just CVC is giving us money and we're going to use this money to increase prize money to the men's level, which is partly great and partly depressing.
I mean, that's the news, and we're just going to have to wait and see how it plays out at this point. I don't have anything to add to that, per se.
No. Can we not call all of the British grass court tournaments the fucking Rothesay? Or however you say
You
that?
mean like how they were all the Fever Tree?
All the Nature Valley?
The Fever Tree, ginger ale, spritz, open.
Every goddamn week I open and somebody else is doing something at the Rothesay. Like, can you give me the city, maybe? The location?
I thought Rothesay was the city.
Holy shit. It is so annoying.
What is it? The LTA?
Yeah.
They must be just license all of the tournaments that they own.
They have one name sponsor.
They package it or whatever.
Like, I get it, but you got to give me something here.
A couple of final news items before we get into the draw segment of the episode. Annette Kontaveit. Wow, what a gut punch. To her and to everybody, really. Like, this woman is not even a year out from being the number 2 player in the world. Being on that massive Arthur Ashe stage, looking down Serena Williams in her final match and giving a great account of herself, and then to have her career just completely collapse in the aftermath. Nothing to do with that moment.
No.
But her body just giving out.
I mean, she was only 26 years old then, right? She's 27 now. Wimbledon will be her last tournament. She's retiring with lumbar disc degeneration, which is just wear and tear on your discs. I know what it feels like. I would never be able to play tennis or anything in this state. So I can't imagine the sort of like daily pain that she has to go through to train. So I definitely sympathize. It's just so young.
Another retirement. I know that one of my lasting contributions to tennis discourse will be, how dare you ever tell somebody to retire? But if somebody was deserving of it, it was Feliciano Lopez. And at long last, it has happened.
Feliciano, who has been a tournament director for several years now, while also being an active player, which
a semi-active
embarrassing.
player.
Well, I feel like Feliciano has been in the process of retiring for at least 5 years now. He's somebody who has lined up his post-playing career with quite a bit of cunning and strategy.
What did you just call me?
And also banking on pretty privilege. Most definitely, right?
I mean, your mother used to call him Delicioso. He was a big draw for her when she first started going to tennis tournaments.
But Feliciano has been the tournament director at Madrid, being a good soldier, defending the indefensible. That gets you points. He has now also been given the captaincy for Davis Cup Spain, and he's a commentator at Sky Sports. And he just recently got 3 straight singles wildcards during the grass swing. Like, what else is there? Is he going to succeed David Haggerty as the head of the ITF? I mean, like, what is next?
And allegedly, he still couldn't tip properly at Applebee's back in the day.
Wow, I feel like that's off the record.
Ooh, well, we've had a lot to say about this man in the last year or so, and it has had nothing to do with his tennis. And I'm afraid we could be 70 years old still doing this podcast, and he will be overlord of some fresh Madrid bullshit.
No, he will. Yep. Caroline Wozniacki
The big news
has announced that she plans to return to tennis. The U.S. Open has already given her a wild card.
This young lady really does like to fashion herself in Serena Williams' shadow / likeness, doesn't she?
Wow. The Vogue piece.
With the Vogue piece.
That time where she impersonated her on court. Yeah.
That one. Like,
Which is still on YouTube because I was looking for other Caroline videos this week.
for me, this didn't warrant a Vogue essay. Did I read all of it? I did not. I thought I had read all of it, and I got to what I thought was a natural conclusion. I was like, wow, this really continues. For another like 5 or 6 paragraphs. It's like, ma'am, I'm sorry. I'm happy. What's that meme? I'm happy for you, good for you, but I will not be reading this.
Yeah. I did not open the link. I did not read it.
But Caroline Wozniacki Esquire is back. And you know, you have all these memes on the internet saying, oh, Caroline saw the state of the WTA and she's like, hold on, I'm coming to save it. Okay. Until she buck up on Iga in the second round of like 3 tournaments in a row.
I think there is a lot of misplaced nostalgia in those statements.
I mean, I went back and looked at her 2018 Australian Open run, and I remember the Yana Fett down 5-1 in the third set double break point. I knew that. The rest of the cakewalk draw, however.
And the semi, wasn't there a semi with Kerber and Halep that was like a classic?
Yes.
And then Simona.
And then
got to the
Simona
final,
was
obviously a little worn out, right?
That was one of the best matches I've ever watched. That Kerber Halep semifinal. Well,
listen.
Congratulations to that lady, that woman, that young woman. She is doing what's best for her, and I will watch it.
Oh yeah, she's an amazing athlete. Like she really is. Like good for her. If I will always encourage somebody to come back to sport, unless it's Feliciano Lopez.
And the more that people do this, is the more that other people will. And so I tweeted, "Are you all happy to have Caroline Wozniacki Esquire come back to tennis?" And some people were like, as long as that means that Serena's next, or no, but I wish it was Serena. Like, we need to let that go. We need to let that go. We need to move on.
It's not happening. The people were not that excited, I would say.
She's only 32 years old.
No, I mean, the responses to your tweet were not positive.
I mean, that's how I remember listeners of our show,
I guess, yeah,
responding to her over the years.
She's coming back with a lot of confidence, though. I don't know.
She says that she's hitting the ball better than she ever has. Right. That's what she said.
Like, I don't know what success looks like for this type of comeback, but come and see what you can do. Why not?
Why wouldn't you? Why would you be 43 years old, 45 years old, and physically unable to do it and wondering if you could have? And don't have those doubts.
Even if it's not that great, nobody is taking that Australian Open from you.
Right.
Nobody is taking all those weeks at number 1.
You could come back and be a solid top 50 player for 5 years win a couple tournaments on the 250-500 level, and that'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You set the goals for what you want to do.
All right, we're about an hour in, but we got to do these draws.
Okay, let's start with the men, where potentially we may have video graphics of Novak Djokovic chasing Margaret Court's record at this tournament. The good chase for 24, the elusive 24.
That's the theme of the men's side is there any competition for Novak? And no, there is not. I would say he's like the 90% favorite. I mean, to me, the odds are so overwhelmingly in his favor. The men's game, it's not great, Bob.
If you think that the men's game is in a pathetic state, generally speaking,
Which it is.
it is even more so on grass.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking around for contenders, for people who can beat Novak here, and I don't see any.
You have Stefanos Tsitsipas flailing away in Mallorca, looking like I don't know what the grass court is doing to him. Have you seen those videos from this past week?
Yeah.
What is going on?
I'm always so confused by him on grass because I don't know, just like looking at his game, you'd think he'd be a lot better.
Right, you'd think it conjures a Federer kind of thing, but it really doesn't. He's not that. He's not that.
I'm not saying the skill level, I'm just saying like the style of game.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's talk about some first round matches here. Berrettini-Sonego. Berrettini has been injured. Sonego just beat him 6-1, 6-2 at Stuttgart, so this is a horrendous draw for him. But I don't know, is it clear that Berrettini is even going to play?
People are still waiting for withdrawal. I don't know.
Yeah. Similarly, is it clear that Kyrgios is going to play?
He's there.
He is, and he could face his last year vanquisher in the quarterfinals, I believe. I think they're in the same quarter because of Kyrgios' ranking.
Francis Tiafoe opens against Yibing Wu. That's a tough one.
Yes.
Davidovich Fokina against Artur Fils.
Yeah, and Alejandro's not doing that great on grass right now. He could meet Rune in the third round, which I think Holger has to be the heavy favorite there.
This tournament also sees the return of Milos Raonic.
Yes. Okay, so Milos is back. He is still dealing with this shoulder thing. He pulled out of his most recent tournament with a shoulder injury. It's unclear what kind of Milos we're going to see here, but I am kind of excited he's back. We've got these dangerous floaters here like Adrian Manarino, who's currently in the Mallorca final. Talon Griekspoor is the 28th seed. He just won in the Netherlands. Starts against Fucsovics. Daniil Medvedev has never gone past the fourth round here at Wimbledon. He does have a grass title at Mallorca. Mallorca seems to be like the exception. Stefanos also has one grass title, and it was at Mallorca. But Daniel could play Manarino in the second round. There's Griekspoor, another grass court guy, in the third round. And then it gets very interesting at the bottom part of the second quarter.
Well, what are you doing here? Because you started off by just saying, oh, here are some first round
Yeah,
matches.
I know. I sort of
like
got bored
which
with
draw are we in? What section?
Sorry, we're in the second quarter now. Down all the way at the bottom. Andy Murray starts against Ryan Peniston.
Son of Cici Peniston. Did you know that?
What?
Finally, it's
right.
happened to me.
Ryan had some wins.
For the record, that's a lie.
Yes. Ryan had some wins during the grass court swing last season. I remember talking about him. He hasn't done a whole lot since. But Andy is the winner of the Surbiton and Nottingham Challengers. He's coming in as like a huge dark horse. Right next to them.
I mean, that's an overstatement, I feel. Sure, he has his history
Sure,
there.
but look at this draw.
Sure, but Andy, best of 5 at slams, even on grass. He hasn't shown that this is doable for him to make a long run.
Sure.
In a while.
In the second round, the winner of that would play the winner of Tsitsipas and Dominic Thiem.
Yeah, you might say like, wow, that sucks, but it's an opportunity for both of them because neither of them have historically been good on grass or at this tournament.
Right. Also in that little section is Maxime Cressy. Ben Shelton starts against Taro Daniel.
Cam Norrie is there as well, last year's semi-finalist. Cerundolo, who is currently in the semi-finals in Rothesay, in some other place, somewhere in England.
Eastbourne.
Right, so there's a lot of people. The challenge with grass, and I feel like in this day and age, we are more looking for the grass experts, the people who've had like niche results on grass. And it's similar to what it was like in the 80s and 90s with clay. Like you get to the French Open, you're like, well, this person is a clay expert.
Right.
And so we need to look for them here, and then they'll be trash on grass, and then they'll maybe make a fourth run at the US Open, and that's it. But now we can look at people, because I think over time, this unfamiliarity with grass court tennis has just exacerbated. The gap has been wider.
Which is interesting because the grass is certainly not as fast and low bouncing as it used to be. As much as Wimbledon says, we haven't changed the grass, we all have eyes, we can see it. You'd think it would be easier.
Right, but this is where the Channel Slam conversation comes into play and why people think of that as a huge achievement, because it's not just that you're adjusting to a new surface, you're adjusting to a surface that's so drastically different from clay in such a short period of time. And you have to balance taking time off from the French Open, resting yourself, acclimating to a new surface, playing matches when you only have, 3 weeks between those two big tournaments, figuring out when you're going to play, how much you're going to play. If you get 4 matches under your belt and you're going to peace out like Iga.
Right,
you know?
I get all that, but a lot of those factors have gotten easier, not harder. There's a bigger gap between the two slams. The grass doesn't play as quickly as it used to, probably. That's what I'm saying.
Fine. Fuck my drag.
The second quarter is a big question mark to me. Medvedev is the seeded semifinalist.
You're on this Medvedev.
What?
You've been talking about him a lot. I feel like Medvedev at this tournament doesn't warrant
I'm saying
much
he's
discussion.
the seeded semifinalist, but,
Okay.
but.
Okay.
That means like something contrasting is coming.
Okay.
Got it?
Go ahead. Contrast for me.
But you could see Nori taking it. Nori was a semifinalist last year. Well, I won't say Andy Murray because you already shot that down. Sebastian Korda, Tommy Paul, even someone like Manarino.
Okay. Maxime Cressy, who serves and volleys out the wazoo.
Right, but his results on grass haven't been great.
Chris Eubanks is in that quarter as well, in that half.
Oh my god, I
he
missed
opens
him.
against Thiago Monteiro, and his second opponent, unfortunately, would be Cam Norrie.
Okay.
You just blew past the first quarter. You didn't talk anything about that.
I did. Okay, fine. So Alex Demonauer is one of the, not like a grass court specialist, but somebody who is especially skilled on grass courts.
Right, outside of Djokovic, he's the most accomplished grass court male player in the last couple of years, in terms of wins.
He won Eastbourne in 2021. He was the runner-up to Carlos this year at Queen's Club.
Jason Kubler is there, who won a challenger, I believe, this season on grass.
And Ilkley.
Carlos Alcaraz is there. Of course, previously, you wouldn't necessarily have thought of him as a huge favorite at this tournament, but now with the title at Queens?
Yep.
There he is, slated to meet Alex de Minaur in the 4th round. Of course, Berrettini is, if healthy, a dangerous floater there. Grigor Dimitrov, he is the round of 16, potentially. He's a 3rd round opponent, possibly for Tiafoe. Of course, if Tiafoe gets by Yibing Wu. It's just impossible to predict. Impossible to predict. Did I say impossible? In the 3rd quarter, that's where you've got Yannick Sinner and you've got Casper Ruud as the 2 top seeds. Now, this Casper Ruud discourse during the grass season has been some of my favorite tennis commentary ever.
Yes.
He said, fuck a grass. I'm not playing any warm-up tournaments. I hate grass. In fact, he told us yesterday he's allergic to grass. People often say that...
Except on a golf course.
There you go. He says almost euphemist. People usually say that euphemistically, right? Like, I'm allergic to something, meaning you don't like it or you don't do well with it. But he's saying that he actually has to take allergy medication.
Stop.
That's what he said.
Seriously?
Yeah. But of course, we see this dude out on the golf course all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, he just clearly does not care about this tournament. And I really like that. He's only ever made the 2nd round here.
And also, he just lost the French Open final. Like, he needs to take some time for himself. He's only made 3 main draw appearances here and has only made it past the 1st round 1 time. And that was only to the second round. So the expectations are extremely low for Casper.
Third round, potentially Denis Shapovalov. Borna Coric is in that quarter as well. Yoshihito Nishioka. Dan Evans. Barf.
Evans, who won the Nottingham Challenger last year, he would be the third round opponent for Yannick Sinner.
Lloyd Harris, who was in the semifinal against Chris Eubanks in Mallorca. Gregoire Barrère, who's in the semifinals in, what's that other one?
Eastbourne.
I mean, there are a lot of names there. Taylor Fritz. But by seeding, it would be Taylor Fritz against Yannick Sinner in the fourth round and Borna Coric against Casper Ruud. I don't think that's going to happen.
No. Taylor has a tough opener against Yannick Hanfmann, who was a semifinalist in Mallorca this week. I think a lot of people expect Sinner to be one of the chief challengers for this title, and it's a short list. It's Djokovic and then like a massive golf.
My kingdom for Breakpoint Season 2 second batch, where Taylor Fritz shows up and he goes, yo, dude, I was like one of the favorites for this tournament, and I just like went out in the first round again, and like I couldn't believe it, man. It was just like so depressing.
Oh God. Let me stop complaining. It's really hard to draft stories from this draw. It really is. Andrei Rublev was the unlucky top 8 seed to fall into Novak Djokovic's quarter. Rublev was the runner-up in Halle, lost to Bublik.
Felix Auger-Aliassime is there in that quarter as well. Of course, we have not seen him since the French Open. Lorenzo Musetti is there. John Isner.
He's still playing, huh?
Still kicking.
Going back to Felix for a second, after the French Open, he said he was dealing with some illnesses, like he had gotten sick 2 times in a row, and he was going off to try to figure out what the hell was going on there. Rybakina was sick at the French Open.
Viral illness.
Pulled out of a tournament last week because she was still feeling the effects of it. Like, what is going on here? Has everybody been checked for COVID? Do you think do they still do COVID testing? Do you think? Probably not.
Oh no, at tournaments, right? No, they don't.
No. I mean, like, if a player is sick, do you think they think, should I test for COVID, or do they just not test? I would be interested because a few players are like, oh, I'm dealing with these mysterious viral illnesses. Like, okay. Have you thought of one in particular? But also, I do just wonder, like, is this out of the ordinary, or is it just that I'm like extra sensitive and looking for things because we just went through a pandemic?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
First round matches. Stan Wawrinka opens against Rusevori. Jordan Thompson against Nakashima. What else do we got here? I'm always interested to see where Enzo Cuoco is. He qualified for this tournament. He opens against JJ Wolf. Bublik opens against Mackie McDonald. Kyrgios against Goffin.
Like, that is last year's runner-up versus last year's quarterfinalist.
You mentioned Fritz against Hanfmann. And Diego Schwartzman against Kecmanovic. Like, I mean, we just spent, 20 minutes going through this men's draw. It's all futile. It's going to be Djokovic, and it's a minimum in the final, and it's going to be another one. Like, what are we even doing here? I am not interested.
Yeah, it's late on a Friday. Let's just talk about the women, please. All right, Iga Swiatek, fresh from Rosa's tie in Wimbledon Village. I will say, a good tom yum soup, it'll knock out anything.
Oh my God.
The lemongrass,
don't even drink tom yum soup. I love a tom yum soup.
I just don't really deal with soup. I'm just saying that lemongrass will kill whatever is ailing you. Okay, before we get into the nitty gritty, there's been a lot of discussion about this draw, and I'm not going to be contrarian. This is literally one of the most lopsided draws I've ever seen in my life.
In your life.
In my entire life.
Your entire life.
I don't see a contender in the top half outside of Iga. Do you? Maybe Donna Vekic? Maybe Caroline Garcia?
In the top half? The entire top half?
Where are all the grass court contenders here? Where are they? They're in the bottom half. Good. Everybody who's been playing well?
No, I disagree. I mean, it just so happens that Bencic has been injured. She hasn't been playing. How dare you have me defend Bencic on this podcast? Firstly, Kasatkina is in a final as we speak.
She is.
Coco Gauff. I mean, you've clearly just decided that she ain't gonna do nothing at this tournament.
I love Coco,
But
I don't see her as a contender at Wimbledon.
okay,
Right?
so
Not right now.
there's part of your problem
Not
there.
right now.
There is Venus Williams.
Yeah, who got a really horrible first round against Alina Svitolina.
I don't think that that's necessarily the case. Venus is perpetually unseeded, and it could have been anybody in that first round. And
That's true.
Svitolina, historically on grass, is not that girl. That said,
But Svitolina versus Venus.
it's a 3-1
Is that
head-to-head. She's won the last 3.
Okay.
But Svitolina is just coming back as well. I think grass could make a big difference in this situation.
Okay.
Like, Svitolina is a backboard. That's the kind of player that Venus struggles against.
Yeah.
And on hard courts and on clay, that is especially a problem. But on grass, it may not be as much the case, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That said, Svitolina has made a semifinal at Wimbledon. So,
Well, okay, back to the top half. Iga draws Julin in the first round. Petra Martic in her potential third round match. Belinda Bencic is the other big seed in that section. Belinda has played 0 matches on grass. She does not actually have a match win since Charleston due to injury. Dasha Kazatkina, number 11 seed, is currently in the Eastbourne final. She could play Azarenka in the third round.
Vika just does not like grass. It's clear. That was clear to
Yeah.
me watching her in Berlin.
Oh, well, she made that very clear in Berlin. What did she say? I hate this fucking court?
Yes.
Elisa Mertens, let's pencil her into the third round. She could play golf in the third. Coco opens against countrywoman Sophia Kenin, who qualified for this tournament. She beat Taylor Townsend in the final round of qualifying.
Fairly easily.
Yeah. And Venus and Svitolina are also in that little section. So the winner of Venus Svitolina could play Mertens in the second round.
So what are you saying when this is the most lopsided? When people say that, it's like lopsided in favor of somebody. So are you projecting that this is lopsided in favor of Swiatek?
Well,
To
yes.
like break through on grass
she couldn't-
and make the final of Wimbledon and be gifted an easy grass court Wimbledon Grand Slam, and then she'll be one major away from the career Grand Slam.
Calm down. That's very dramatic. I'm just saying she could not really have asked for an easier draw. Let's look at it differently and look who's in the bottom half.
Okay, fine.
Jabeur, Kvitova, Ostapenko, Rybakina, Keys, Sabalenka, Muchova, Alexandrova, Krejcikova, Haddad Maia. Like pretty much everybody who can play well on grass is in the bottom half.
You also didn't even talk about Kudermetova. She's in that top half as well.
I didn't. That's
Right.
correct.
There's Donna Vekic there too.
No,
she's,
definitely.
She's the 20
Like,
seed.
I feel like Donna and Caroline are the players who proven they have this grass court pedigree who could definitely do something here. Caroline Garcia has 3 grass court titles in her career, which is a lot.
Jessica Pegula is there. She hasn't had great results on grass, but she was quoted as saying that every time she loses, like she feels like she's just getting accustomed to it. I feel like she's a player who is a stone's throw away from something clicking.
All right.
There's a
all right.
fine margin between not having had success on grass and then figuring it out. Some players never do, and I feel like some could. And it's just a matter of time. You just don't have enough time to do it. There's Linda Fruhvirtova, Harriet Dart. Don't look past these Brits at Wimbledon.
That's true. You never know. Siniakova is currently in the Bad Homburg final versus Bronzetti. Siniakova starts against Zhang Qinwen, which I think could be an interesting first round. Kudermetova starts against Kanepi.
Samsonova is there as well. She opens against Anna Bogdan, somebody who I like to watch play tennis. I think has a beautiful game. By seed, fourth rounds, Swiatek against Bencic, Kasatkina against Goff, Pegula against Samsonova, Kudermetova against Garcia. Bottom half. Just show me now how lopsided this is. I want to see.
All right, so last year's runner-up is there on the top on Jabeur. She has Kalinina potentially in the third round. In the next little section, we've got Karolina Pliskova and Petra Kvitova. Those could be third-round opponents. Petra, generationally, the best grass court player of her cohort. 6 titles on the
Outside
surface.
of Venus Williams.
Well, they're not the same age. They're a different generation. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
There's 10 years separating them.
Okay. I thought we were going with just like active players.
No, that's not what I meant. I'm in no way comparing Petra to Venus.
I mean, Petra hasn't had a good result at Wimbledon since the last time she won, right?
Right. That's the paradox, right? Is that Petra has 2 Wimbledon titles. The last one was in 2014. She won in dominant fashion. She has wonderful results on grass outside of Wimbledon, but she's only reached the 4th round 1 time since winning. Moving along, Haddad Maia starts against Putintseva. You remember last year, Haddad Maia won 2 consecutive grass court titles and then flamed out in the first round of Wimbledon. She has only ever reached the 2nd round here. She's done it twice. If she wins her first round, she could play Bronzetti, who is currently playing the Bad Homburg final. Then we got Tatiana Maria starts against Kirstea. Maria was very nearly in the final of Wimbledon last year. And next to that is Yelena Ostapenko. We have great grass court players here. Penko, who just won a title, the former semifinalists, both of them, her and Maria, Haddad Maia, all for the privilege of potentially playing Yelena Rybakina in the 4th round. Is Shelby Rogers a tricky match in the first round? Like, if Rybakina is not feeling her best, there is potential for that to be difficult.
I'm starting to see what you're saying about the lopsided nature of this draw. And the reason is, you play this out by seeding, and you have Jabeur against Kvitova, Haddad Maia against Rybakina, last quarter Sakkari against Krejcikova, Muchova against Sabalenka. But then you have all these other players who are ranked below them, who aren't on course to make that 4th round by seed, and they may be even better options.
Right.
Like Ostapenko is a 17th seed. Tatiana Maria, we've seen that she has a pedigree on grass. Sasnovich is there.
Bianca Andreescu is unseeded. She's in Jabor's section.
I mean, as she should be, and as...
Well...
she should be, because on the surface as well.
Yes.
We need to not consider that. Yulia Niemeyer opens against Karolina Muchova. That is crazy. We saw Niemeyer take out Ons Jabeur in Germany, and this young woman can flat out ball on grass.
Right. But Muchova has been to the quarterfinals at Wimbledon twice.
Yes.
That was like originally her breakout, like her best surface. This is 2 tournaments in a row where Muchova has a really difficult first round, but here she will be favored.
Because at the French Open, she opened against Sakkari.
Right. Sakkari has a difficult first round again. Opens against Marta Kostyuk.
Previously, Alison Risk was a grass stalwart. We haven't heard much from her in the last couple of years. She opens against Paula Badosa. She's another person who's on withdraw watch. Celine Naif opens against Anastasia Potapova. We've got Madison Brengel opening against Sarah Irani. If you're looking for a match that promises mess,
and
that could be it for you.
If you have a lot of time on your hands.
Barbara Krejcikova opens against Heather Watson. You just got to look out for all of these British women. Wherever there's a British woman in these draws, Watson is the woman who almost beat Serena Williams at Wimbledon a couple of years ago. Well, more than a couple of years ago at this point.
That was 2015, I believe, in the middle of the Serena Slam. Sabalenka, not too bad. Potential 3rd round against Begu. But then it gets complicated in the 4th round because you have either Muchova, Niemeyer, Alexandrova, who's already won a grass title this year and last year.
At some point, Alexandrova has to make good, right?
She has to break out.
Both her and Kudermetova.
So Madison Keys has just tapped into something this week, reaching the final in Eastbourne. Maria Sakkari is the seeded player to reach the 4th round there, but I could see Keys going to the quarters. There's Krejcikova.
You're asking Madison to have good results in back-to-back weeks. That's asking a lot.
But I think there's just a lot of interesting grass court players here. Alexandrova, Sabalenka, Muchova. Krejcikova has won Wimbledon twice in doubles, has reached the 4th round here in singles.
I'd have liked to have seen better form from Ons in this grass season.
Yes.
For me to feel more confident about her at this tournament.
Definitely. But, I know that Petra has yips here, but you think, like, she could be a real contender again, even given a very difficult draw.
Right, but then you think of, well, two of the best pedigreed grass players at this tournament on the women's side could meet in the quarterfinals. Kvitova and Ostapenko. And that just seems unfair.
Right, and alternatively, in that same slot, it could be some of the other best grass court players in Rybakina Jabeur.
Correct.
They're all in the same, like,
Yes.
That is crazy.
Fine, I accept your point.
Right.
I think I was just pushing back against you essentially framing all those other players as a nothingness.
No, not that they're not very good players. It's just that the players who've been excelling on this surface and who have been playing well most recently are pretty much down here in the bottom half.
And then look, qualifying Mira Andreeva against Wang Jiyu in the first round to play potentially Krejcikova in the second round.
Yeah.
That is a big time player on the horizon right
Yeah,
there.
she's been getting like a lot of hype lately.
And do not overlook Emma Navarro. Do not.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely do not overlook
Don't,
Emma
because
Navarro.
she might move Wimbledon to Birmingham for all we know.
I think the overall picture here is that there are far more competent grass court players on the women's side than there are on the men by an order of, what's the word, magnitude?
Yeah. Or there are just a lot of legitimate contenders for this title. I always do this thing where I take a bunch of notes on the top 8 seeds, what their recent results were and stuff. But I was looking through and it's like as soon as you get out of the top 8 on the women's, it is very crowded. Number 9, Kvitova, Krejcikova, Kazatkina, then Haradmaya 13, Muchova, Ostapenko, Vekic, Alexandrova, and we're only at number 21. It is a very crowded field on the women's side.
So, we are not going to make predictions on this show as we have retired from doing for many, many years. But we invite you to join us again with our Racket Bracket Challenge on the tennis app TNNS. And there is an invite code that we played the Australian Open with this app. We played Roland Garros with this app. And now we're keeping that continuity. And the invite, once you've downloaded the app, use league code LABOR-ACE-9494 to join. And of course, the league name is The Body Serve.
All right. Well, thanks for listening.
My name is Jonathan. You can find me on Twitter at tennis_John.
And I'm James at ElliotJMR.
2 L's, 2 T's. You can find everything Body Serve related at linktree.com/thebodyserve. Happy Wimbledon.
Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.